Okay, so previously what we've done here is we've used a variable that contains a string George, and we've printed that out along with the string hello. So when I run that, it says hello George, and that's cool, but something somewhat limiting. There's another way to do this that's a little bit better because the space that is arbitrarily thrown in here is a little bit um, not useful, and in some cases you don't want a space. And let's say I want to write hello George and then put a period at the end of it. Well, I could do something like this, but what you'll see here is that it puts a space in between here, between George and the period. So let me show you a better way to put a variable inside a string, and that is called an F string. And an F string is short for a formatted string, and so I can print that directly. So if I want to say print, and then I'm going to type the lowercase letter f, and then I'm going to put my quotes for the string right after that. And what that tells Python is that this string, whatever I put in the quotes, is now a formatted string. And the cool thing that that allows me to do is it allows me to drop a variable right into the string and have control over all of the spacing and everything. So let's say I wanted to say, hello, George. So hello, and then I'm going to put the space in there this time because it's not going to put the space automatically. But instead of putting a comma and then str name, so what I'm going to do is I am going to add curly braces instead. And what that says to the F string is I'm going to put a variable inside this string, and whatever's inside the variable container, you're going to print. So I'm going to, inside the curly braces, put the variable str name, and you can see it's a different color than the rest of the string. That's to help it stand out here in PyCharm. That's one of the nice things about using PyCharm and one of the things it does for us. So I'm going to put that, and then I'm going to put an exclamation point because we're really excited to see George. And I'm going to say, how are you today? And now when I run that, what it prints is, hello, George, how are you today? And you can see it keeps my spaces only where I want them, and it gives me control. Now, let's say I'm going to add another variable here, and let's make it a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to say str my name. And what you can see here is I'm doing something a little strange with my variable names here. You can see I start out with a lowercase, and I start out with str, lowercase, and then every time there's a new word in my variable, I'm not putting a space there, I'm putting uppercase. And the reason for that is because when we're creating variables, we can't put a space in the middle of a variable. But to make it more readable, every time there's a new word in my variable name, I'm putting a capital there, and I'm keeping the rest of it lowercase. This is actually called camel case, and you can see it kind of resembles a camel with the humps in the middle. And the reason I'm starting out with str in my variable name, as you might have guessed, is to tell myself later, or anybody else who reads my code, that this variable is intended to be a string. So if I say str my name equals Bill, let's add another variable to our F string here. So let's say, hello, George. My name is str my name. And so now we can, let's shrink this down so we can see the code better. There we go. Str name equals George. Str my name equals Bill. And then our F string uses both of those variables. And so when I run that, it says, hello, George, my name is Bill. And now I can go in and change those variable values And when I run it, it updates that f string. So every time I run that, it takes these two variables in those two containers and it puts them, the value, into that string. So that's how you use an f string. And there's something fun we can do with an f string. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. You may or may not be. These were really popular when I was a kid, but they're called Mad Libs. And for kids, they're used to teach kids parts of speech like nouns and verbs and adjectives and things like that. For our purposes here, it's a really convenient way for us to insert or practice inserting variable values into text. So let's check out a Mad Libs. Okay, so let's use our f string now to make a Mad Libs. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start a new file here, and we'll call this, I'm going to use a number to start it to keep track of things, o2 madlibs.py. You can call it whatever you want. I like to keep all my file names lowercase, of course, no spaces, and end in .py so the Python knows what kind of file they are. And beyond that, you can choose. But what I've got here is an empty canvas for my new work of art here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the Mad Libs text. And so I've got this little story that I've prepared for you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string variable called strStory. And I'm going to use something interesting here. I'm going to use what's called the triple quote. And the triple quote is a unique way of defining a string in Python that allows a string to take up more than one line, and it will preserve the line breaks. So if I do three quotes, so there's three at the beginning and three at the end, and then I paste my story in there, you can see here I've got this 4 lines of text, and each one is a little sentence, and you can see inside there it's got noun and adjective and 1 and 2. So it's got some little placeholders, and those are where I'm going to put my variables so that I can create a funny little story. So I'm going to move this story down, and I am going to do a few things. I'm going to start looking at these variables, and I am going to create a variable name for each one, str noun1, and I'm going to set the value of those to something interesting, something somewhat random, but it has to be a noun. So I'm going to say dog. Okay, and then the next one is adjective 1. So I've got strad. Now I don't have to name my variables str adjective 1, but I like to do that because it sort of keeps with my pattern. And I'm just going to go through and create different words that go with each type. So verb 1, str verb 1, let's say running, and verb 2, let's say painting. Why not? Okay, I can kind of see by the context here that it should be a verb in the present sense. Str verb 3, let's just say flew, and adjective 2 is happy. Okay, so there is my variables and there is my story. Now all I need to do is go through and put in my variables using an F string. So I'm going to change this to an F string by putting an F right in front of those triple quotes. And F strings work with triple quotes just as well as they do with regular quotes. But now I'm going to highlight each field here. And instead of that, I'm going to say str noun one. And you can see it kind of highlights it a different color. So I'm doing good there. And then I've got str adjective one. And I've got str noun two. Now I want to make sure that I keep the space in there. Now notice if I put some brackets around a word and it doesn't match any of my existing variable names, it's going to underline that. If I run this right now, it's going to give me an error because this verb one doesn't actually exist. That's not a variable. And so it's telling me, hey, I see you have a variable there, but it's not defined. So that's what that red underline means. It's a good thing to watch out for. str verb one, and then str verb two, and then we've got str verb three, and finally we've got str adjective two. Okay, so now we've got all of these parts of speech defined. They are inserted into this F string called str story. Now the last thing we need to do is just print that out. So I'm just going to say print str story, and let's run that and see what happens. And there it is. You can see yesterday I went to the dog and saw the most red airplane. It was running around like it had no care in the world. I decided to paint it to see what would happen, but it just flew away. What a happy day it turned out to be. So there is your Mad Libs story using predefined variables that we inject into the story using an F string and then print it. So that is how you would create a Mad Libs page. Next step, we will get a little bit more advanced and we will ask the user to give us the Mad Lib terms to insert.